people tend to overcomplicate it, but once they understand, it is so much faster for all the trades, whether it's interior framing, the anchor points and your floor joists, anchor points and your rafter anchor, all of this is cemented into your walls. And so you go in and it is so fast.
Welcome back, everybody. Chris G here, Hard Hat CEO. Good to see you guys. Glad you're here. Got a treat today. Got some gentlemen all the way from Salt Lake City, Utah. And I was talking about, we talked about trees and stuff. I said the last time I was there, I saw rocks. And while they're beautiful rocks, there's lots of rocks. So anyway, we're going to talk about today some alternatives as far as for contractors, how to set yourself apart, how to save some money and labor and so forth, and really actually save lives, literally, if you think about it. And I'll let them explain that. But let's welcome Ben Snuffer and Dustin Jensen. Welcome, guys. How you doing?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Can you
I am excellent.
Tell us a little bit about yourselves, about your company, about yourself, and then we'll just get into the podcast.
Sounds great. So to start it off, our company is called Monolith, and we are an ICF manufacturing company. And the thing that sets us apart is we are one of the very few that actually do polyurethane-based ICF instead of polystyrene. There's a massive difference between the two. And some quick history into Monolith before really delving deep. I'm a contractor. I've been building since 2006, I would say. And I've done everything from new builds to remodels, landscaping, commercial, residential, all sorts of things. So I sort of am a jack of all trades, master of none, really. I really understand what it takes to go from a dream to some plans that you really want to develop a beautiful, whether it's a land development to as simple as just doing a remodel. So I've sort of experienced it all, and in my journey, I really delve deep into what does it mean. First of all, I really love that you said alternative, because that is one of the biggest things that I would sort of emphasize today. The fact that you said alternative is the problem with ICF. This should be standard, not alternative. To me, alternative is straw build, cob, the older systems that we evolved from. And now we went, in my journey, I went from stick built to then, more commercial application, which is steel frame, to then really questioning everything about the building industry. And I spent years, upwards of 8+ years of trying to really understand what are the actual options that we have besides the air quotes industry standard. So it started with the question of what is actually out there and how do I solve the problem of how do I create a system, or rather what system exists today to what is functional, what is fast, what is easy, what lasts 100+ years. What are we doing as a building industry? Where are we failing, and why are we failing, and how do we solve those failures? And so I went to straw bale courses and these sort of actual alternative, the earth ship systems. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those. They do them a lot in New Mexico and Arizona. Just these sort of like more homestead style building, all the way to, what are the skyscrapers made out of, and what are the successes in all those technologies, and where's the failures? And I found almost the majority of the time is failures. It was either fast and cheap, but it didn't really last. And then the ones that lasted were insanely expensive, extremely complicated, and it took an army of people. It is that there was no common ground of like what really solves the actual ultimate question is what is the ultimate material to build with and why is that the ultimate one? And so I went through all these different systems. I finally landed upon ICF. I really loved ICF, but to me, the main weak point in ICF is the material that the entire industry is, which is polystyrene. Think of like packing peanuts or that shipping material when you buy a new TV, that white shipping material. They basically have a higher density version of that. And
What is ICF?
it stands for Insulated Concrete Form. Sorry about that.
Okay,
I'm
no,
I'm
that's all right.
I'm used to people sort of knowing what that is. So, insulated concrete form. It's a hollow block.
Mm-hmm.
Traditionally, it's about 16 inches tall by 4 feet wide
Mm-hmm.
by whatever depth that you want. And by depth, I mean you have a 6-inch core of concrete, 8-inch core of concrete, 10 or 12, depending on the application. And you're basically stacking a foam block that has a plastic insert in between. So you have a 2.5-inch wall of foam, another 2.5-inch wall of foam, and then you have a plastic insert that holds those foam walls in place. And then it also holds what I call rebar seats, where you can just place your rebar
Mm-hmm.
inside and you don't have to do any tying. So if you've got any people that do concrete in your audience and foundation work, you have to tie all those rebar pieces together. You have to set up your form work. It
Right.
temporarily stays in place, and then you have to break down all that form work as well. With our block or with any ICF block, you set that block into place. And what it does is it creates your temporary form, or rather permanent, because you don't have to disassemble it afterwards. It's
Right.
your framing, it's your vapor barrier, it's your fireproofing, it seals all your things, so it's your air barrier. It's all these things in one. And what we like to call the 7-in-1 building system for Monolith, it's your structure or framing, your insulation, vapor barrier, fire barrier, air barrier, sound barrier, and it's finish ready, meaning that you can slap sheetrock on the inside right to it and you can side right to it. So you don't have to do any extra steps. It's put the foam in, do your rebar, pour your concrete, and walk away. And then all your other tradesmen can come in, do your plumbing, your electrical, your siding, sheetrock, all that stuff, and it's all put together. So that's essentially what an ICF form is. I hate to call it form because forms tend to, you visualize that you have to disassemble it and you take
Mm-hmm.
it away. This, it just stays in place. And it's an excellent system. So that's what an ICF block is. Does that make
What?
sense?
Yes, actually, I've seen those before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's not very popular in Missouri. I'm not. Well, I know it was a phase, and I
Mm-hmm.
know what you were talking about. It's been done in the past. I'm sure it's improved over the years. The technology has gotten better. Um, what what would drive you to consider something new like that? What problem did you identify? You said you saw some problems. What
Mm-hmm.
problem did you identify that you said, I need to solve that, and this is a good solution?
So to me, I have done countless remodels. And any contractor that goes in and does a remodel, what they're doing is they come in, and unfortunately, even as soon as 3 years after a new build,
Hmm.
and they're ripping apart everything and they're looking into this hollow cavity, which is your shell of your home. It should be the most robust. This is what protects you and your family and the things that you truly love. In fact, that's one of our slogans: protect what you love. And so when you go in for years and you rip apart these walls and all you're seeing is dry rot, termite issues, um, wet rot, and all they just erode, and then everything just, it's all about decay. And that's why you're doing the remodel. There's a reason why you're hired to go in and fix this as soon as a 3-year-old house. I've seen an 8-month-old house that have already had failure points. So the
Wow.
problem I'm trying to solve is I am absolutely obsessed with efficiency. I love when we talk to customers and people that have experienced ICF and their neighbors are spending $250 a month, and then an ICF homeowner is spending $25 a month for heating and cooling. That excites me. And so the problems are inefficiency in the actual operations of a home or a building. Why do they constantly break down and they won't even last? 30 years is pretty realistic. 50 years is exceptional. 100 years is unheard of. But there are homes in England, Europe, really, really old buildings that have lasted. And why? Why have they lasted that long? The majority of the answer is really heavy masonry and concrete. That's where the ICF really comes in, because you have a concrete wall, 6 to 12 inches of concrete. I
Concrete,
cannot
yeah.
imagine much that's really going to erode in that. So the problems that I was really looking at is every building I've really gone into is either too hot or too cold, depending on the environment. They
Mhm.
don't last very long. They're not very efficient in terms of man hours. They either take way too long, and if they're a fast build, they're extremely inefficient. Think of manufactured homes or trailer homes. I mean, in a week, you can have a home plopped on a foundation, but they are not very good and they don't last very long. They're a temporary solution for housing. And so I'm really on this journey trying to figure out, how do I create an efficient home that's affordable, not just affordable in the initial, but affordable in the long term? Because to me, that's the most important, is I want something that's going to last generations, and it's not an arm and a leg to operate. Your heating and cooling should be the last thing that you should be thinking about. But unfortunately, for a lot of these homes, especially these new builds, I went, I think a month ago, to look at some new builds in Utah, in Eagle Mountain, if people are familiar with Utah. And these homes are R19 at the most, and they're going to cost an arm and a leg to heat and cool, because we go through the extremes of hot and cold in Utah. And when it comes down to it, I want a house that is always below $75 to operate at an entry level home. Obviously, if you're building some luxury 1,500 square foot home, instead of spending, $1,200 a month in heating and cooling, you're going to be down to $300 a month. And so it just, that is the biggest thing, is operational costs, initial investment, and longevity. And I cannot think of a system that exists today that solves all these problems in such a simple. I know families where it's a husband and wife with a couple kids, and they build their own ICF home. They stack it. They're like 4 pounds per block. They stack them all in, and all they have to pay for is the concrete pump company with a pump truck to come in.
Mhm.
That they pour the concrete, they walk away, and then they can site it, sheetrock it, finish the inside. It's a really simple system. You could, within a week of research, you could build your own ICF house. I cannot say that for professional framing, professional steel work, all these other systems. Or if you were to go really old school and do like a cob home, you and your wife could build that too, but it would probably take 7 years, because you need an army of people. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So sorry, I don't mean to be like super long winded, but that's ultimately the question, is how do I solve all those things?
What's your biggest objection when competing against the traditional type homes?
That is it. You just said it. Traditional. The fact that we're thought of as alternative,
Mhm.
and stick built is thought of as traditional.
Right.
Technically, before stick frame, it was about concrete and masonry. We should be thought of as traditional. They should be on their way out. But there's a lot of money in the lumber industry. There's a lot of objectives with lobbying and the things that come up against thinking of us as not traditional. And I think that is the biggest hurdle. where why doesn't everybody think ICF is the first thing? I'm seeing millions, hundreds of millions of dollars of development going in right now
Mm-hmm.
from the really fancy Park City to sort of like just the lower income housing. And they're all built out of the same material. And I guarantee you within 75 years, all of them will go through remodels. All of them will be expensive to operate and none of them will last. And why is that considered traditional? That should be outlandish. That should be the alternative to an actual permanent system. So that it's messaging. It's how do we educate people, or rather message to people that ICF really is the superior system, because it hits all the check marks. I cannot see what the check marks of frame built homes besides speed. And nowadays with today's technology, ICF is on par, and especially in commercial, we're months and months and months ahead of schedule in elementary schools, colleges, high schools, hospitals, months ahead of schedule.
Dustin and I were talking earlier.
Yeah,
but
another one of those objection though is also, the builders, you gotta, well, we can talk about all these efficiency gains and how you protect what you love in your home and everything. But builders need to know what their advantage is to build with it, and with the traditional stick frame, it's easy early on to see what the ROI might look like. It could be faster, it looks cheaper and things like that. But like we're describing the 7-in-1 system, when you start adding everything up, delays and labor cost and other finishes and things you need to do to increase the the R value and all that. And then you also now have this home that could demand a little bit of a premium. It starts to get really hard to justify a stick frame because there is an ROI advantage there. If you look at it more than just a straight material cost issue, there's an ROI when you're building with ICF.
Well, I have a construction business, and we do traditional homes. I guess, out of school homes, I guess. And I'd be interested in talking about it later. But what are the things that so how do you train or not train? You're talking about messaging. How do you message those type of people like me to educate me?
Well, that's, for me, that's my my number one purpose, is to try to figure that out, because we spent a lot of time talking to people in the ICF industry, and that's including what would be considered maybe we don't really consider them competitors, because we believe the entire ICF industry is got potential. But we talked to other people in the industry, and we seem to hear the same. We kind of have the same narrative. They say there's an education gap. There's an education gap, right? And they say that, but then some of these companies are spending several $1 million on educating the public and doing that. And so we challenge them. We're like, well, we don't think education is the problem. There's something else. You're just not getting the right engagement. You're not speaking to the builders. You're not. You think you're addressing their pain points, and you're not. Or at least you're not making it obvious that you can address their pain points. And so, that's, as an ICF industry as a whole, I mean, that's our messaging, is to try to start getting that engagement from the marketplace. So for more builders like yourself, or people that work with it, they're just attracted to it. They do it. And we need to, like Ben was saying, we got to move from being called alternative to traditional. This needs to be a standard. When people say, I'm going to go, and we're seeing more and more of that, it feels like month after month, we're getting more people calling up. There's just no other way to build than with ICF. And so we are seeing slowly, we're moving into that traditional. And I'll say, we got a huge lift from the fact that, like, these California fires were a high profile event, celebrity homes, high influential people's homes got burnt down. And so quickly, all of a sudden, ICF becomes really important, because it's a clear solution. And in some cases, particularly the polyurethane ICF may be one of the only solutions for these homes, because the insurance companies are pulling out, and if they can't start proving that they can absolutely be protected from a fire, they can't get insurance, and if they can't get insurance, they can't get a mortgage, and so they just can't rebuild that home.
Actually, I'm gonna skip a. You bring something up. I want to skip a question and come back to my other one. So, in your case, you have a product. Are you the builder of it, or are you the supplier of it? Or use both? Do you buy your stuff, or you actually manufacture your own ICFs?
We are manufacturing. In fact, I'm sitting in our manufacturing building as we speak. So we are manufacturing, we're shipping, and we are creating an infrastructure of builders, tradesmen, folks like you that I mean, one thing just real quick that we were just talking about, insurance is a huge reason that I started as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure, Chris, you know what it's like to pay for contractors insurance and owning a company.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
and the huge relief that I feel when I'm like, I just built literally the best building that I possibly can find as far as technology wise. And I know that I'm not going to be getting a phone call in a year. I mean, from what is it, the last build that you do, you have to hold insurance for, I believe, depending on the state, 7 to 9 years. For even if you stopped building today, you would have to carry contractor's insurance for 7 to 9 years, depending on the state, just to cover a previous build that you did 7 years ago. And knowing that you'll never get that phone call is just amazing. You know?
You like Missouri then?
Oh,
We're
yeah.
We're good for 12 months.
Well, here in Utah, it's 7 to 9 years, but we also don't have the natural disasters and all sorts of things.
Sure.
So that's actually, sorry, real quick, that's something I really want to impress upon your audience. I cannot say proof because nothing is ultimately proof, but tornado, hurricane, earthquake, fire, flood, ultimately resistant. I can't say proof because nothing is any proof, but it is the most resilient material and building system that is the ultimate resistance to those natural disasters.
Well, I want to come back to another question on that, but now let's get back to,
Yep.
Is there certain areas that benefit from it more than others? So for example, you said California and their wildfires. Well, we don't have wildfires in Missouri, but I'm glad you brought up tornadoes. We're right next to Oklahoma. We're right in that tornado alley. How does it, I know it's resistant tornadoes because of the concrete, I assume, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you, as a growing company, how long have you been in business?
Well, we've been as a partnership for 2 years. Officially, I would say a year, realistically, as an LLC.
That's perfect. So as a growing business, how do you decide where you spend your marketing dollars to, like, for example, California might be a better place to go because you have examples and proofs, or I would say proof. Yeah, you have some proof of, the polyurethane, it doesn't burn, that type of stuff, compared to, say, focusing on Missouri. And it might not be as advantageous to you. So how do you go through deciding where your markets are going to be?
Well, I can talk
after that,
because
Dustin.
I grew up in Missouri. So
You did?
I grew up in Bolivar, Missouri.
Okay. I know where Bolivar's at.
Yep, Springfield. Yep, that's my hometown. So I know
You're
Missouri.
used to tornadoes in too, aren't you?
I've been there. You've seen it. I know.
Yeah.
I kind of know everything that's going there. So it's a show me state.
Yep.
So we got to show you. So
Absolutely.
well, let me talk. Like we'll just speak on Missouri so you can relate and why, because it's obvious.
Yep.
Like California is obvious. There's fires. The Caribbean's obvious. They've got hurricanes and water damage. I would say Missouri is probably obvious too. I mean, well, tornadoes are hit and miss too. So most people aren't betting on they're going to get hit by a tornado. It's not, they're there, but there's places in California you're likely your house can burn down. And if you're in Florida, you're probably going to get hit by a hurricane. It's obvious.
Right.
So what would be the advantage of Missouri? Well, this is again, we said it's a 7-to-1 system. So there's a lot of things that go into the 701 system. You've got the hurt, first, like you said, the tornado, we've got, it's tornado resistant, or just storms. I mean, you got hail storms, ice storms, just, high wind storms. You're gaining protection from that. There's high humidity and moisture. Sometimes we get floods, we get a lot of rain. This is like a moisture barrier, right?
You know all about Missouri. That's right.
Yep.
Yep.
Pest. I mean, comes with moisture, like the particular to the polyurethane. So this is what's unique from our polyurethane to a styrofoam, is the polyurethane is more resistant to water and pest than a traditional ICF. So pests don't like polyurethane. We're not zero, so we can't say 100% water resistance, but it's pretty close. We just can't state that, but you might as well bank on the moisture isn't getting through. It's interlocking, right? So that's there's no I guess what we call like points of entry there. Also, Missouri it becomes 100 and something degrees in the summer, and it's 0 degrees in the winter. And our block has an R38 R value without the thermal mass from the concrete, so you're getting that value. Missouri's got basements, and we can throw basements up really fast. And so with all that, I mean, you start adding that all up, there's a lot of, there's just a lot of value in building with ICF in Missouri. Because, and if you start adding everything up, the sum of the whole, it's almost better than California, because where I live, I'm not susceptible to fire. So I'm not worried about it.
Right.
But in Missouri, I'm susceptible to all those things anywhere in the state.
Yeah, and basements is a big thing too. We're cheaper than a traditional basement because you don't have to float another wall. So if you think about it, you have your below grade. Traditionally, below grade, you're doing a 8-inch core wall, and once your basement is done, then you have to float another 2x4 wall to make room for your plumbing, electrical, and your insulation. And with our block, it's done. You don't have to float any walls. You don't have to do any extra framing, except for, when you're dividing, root cellar and bedrooms and things like that. But once the basement's done, it's done. And there's just, one of the biggest things with places like yours, besides all the natural disasters, like Dustin already said, one of our investors is really high up in Terminex. And the second he learned that we were built out of polyurethane, there are a lot of places out east that you cannot build with traditional ICF, even though it solves so many problems. The traditional polystyrene, not that it is or guaranteed to have issues, but can have issues with termites. With polyurethane, they do not penetrate it. They don't like it. It's not that they can't. It's that they just really don't like it. It just bothers them, and so they just don't penetrate through.
Cool. From a sales point of view, or even we're going back to the training or the messaging, in marketing, you talk about either a push or a pull, meaning that you guys can push your product out there, or you have clients, not clients, but end users like homeowners asking the contractors for ICF. So how are you doing both, or you have one versus another that you prefer to try as far as marketing your products?
Well, we have to tackle it from a whole ecosystem. We have to try to solve, so we don't get to kind of just target a certain persona or a target market. Really, we have to build a whole ecosystem. And why is that? Because there are a lot of homeowners that will be attracted to this product, and they may hear this podcast, or they might find it online, and they'll want to build out of it. So the first thing they do is they go to their contractor, engineer, architect, whoever they're working with, right? And they present it. Well, what happens is they may not be familiar with ICF, and so it adds an extra layer to the complexity for them to do their job. And what they'll do is they'll need to do permitting and everything else. They'll go to the city planning, or the city, and try to go, or the county, to get what they need. And there'll be pushback, and then they're going to start asking for extra inspections because they're not sure what they're looking at. And it all trickles all the way back down to, well, there's an incentive issue. There's an incentive for the professional, the contractor, to talk the homeowner out of building with it.
Sure.
And then also we have a issue where the contractor may be in, encouraging a homeowner or whoever their client is to build with this. They may see the increase in the price tag or the material cost. Because initially, if you're comparing apples to apples, it looks more expensive. But there's, it's sometimes hard to get people over that understanding that there's a long-term savings, there's insurance savings, there's a lot of different things to consider here. So there's a long-term ownership, and there's also a premium in the home value. So the resale value should improve. And so we have to kind of get everyone to understand that this is a traditional way to build. So we have to kind of tackle the whole ecosystem from a marketing messaging.
But and the ultimate question that I would ask, especially in places of natural disaster areas, how many times do you need to rebuild your house before you want to go with a permanent solution? How many hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, wildfires? How many times do you have to experience that before you say, perhaps there's a better way? And then those areas that aren't prone to those natural disasters, do you really want to be spending hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars every single month in heating and cooling when you could be spending 25, 50 bucks? Or there are systems, there are designs that I'm currently working on that are net zero. Without solar, without anything, it just heats and cools itself because it is so performance-wise. We're at an R38 with the foam, taking the U value of the concrete, we're upwards of 65 plus R value.
Wow.
So we're in a league that doesn't exist right now. Well, it does exist. It exists with us,
Obviously,
and that's
yeah.
alone. And so, it's just, to me, it is a no-brainer, but people just don't know, and it's wild to me that there's builders like yourself that you even, one of the first questions you asked me is, what is ICF? And that's the problem. What ICF is it's the solution. That's what it is.
I understand. If you had said foam, I would have known exactly what you meant. Not that, it's just, or you had set it out, explained it first. In this case, I knew of it.
Yeah.
I've seen it done. I've actually seen the straw bales done too. But anyway, we'll get that. That's another story. We'll do straw bales. That's not. I don't. Yeah. We'll talk about straw bales. Anyway, that type of thing. Getting that word out there. You're right. You said something about insurance. So we build a lot of barn dominiums here. And that seems to be the in style thing. It's basically a pole barn and you live in it. It looks like same on the inside, different on the outside. So for years, the insurance industry couldn't decide what to call it or how to insure it. Is the barn? Is the house? They call them shouses before the barn dominium came into play. And they finally got to a point now there's enough out there that they know how to insure it. Do you have those same problems with insurance companies now? Or have ICF type of buildings been around long enough that they just insure it like anything else? Or better yet, give it better rates than anything else?
I would say it's the same. I think the thing that's going on is there are active insurance companies. We know of one in Florida that will go in and they'll take a timestamp. I can't remember the insurance company, and I really want to work with them, but they'll take a timestamp of every step of the process, and they'll say, okay, we're going to come in, we'll have a representative come in. Once your framing is done, what does it look like? And what's your R value? What's your fire rating? All those things. What are you doing for, if it was like a 2x6 house, what are you doing for your fire blocks? All these things. And then they're able to give you a real quote based off of how the home is built. And systems like that, we will excel magnificently. Texas, they build a lot of their schools. They're really familiar with ICF. There are a couple states where this is now becoming very common. In states that have no idea what ICF is, we will have precisely the same problem. But we can easily pull from other states that have been doing it and say, hey, look, this is what Texas is experiencing. Let's pull from their records and their insurance policies and those things, and then they can map it over.
Gotcha. Um, shoot, you're talking about insurance. How much of your budget is, how much more on research and development do you do on a budget basis? Are you constantly trying to improve your product?
Well, of course, we're always improving our product, but
Right.
we're on the tail end of that. There's a
Mhm.
couple additional products that I personally would like to see made out of polyurethane, decking most specifically, so that way you can make the roof out of it. Because if you have the
Mhm.
roof and the walls, you're in a bunker. And in tornado country, the majority of the time that you'll see a tornado go through and the tornado isn't even close, well, close-ish, and everything
Right.
is perfectly fine. But I don't know if, like, when you're a kid and you pop the head off of a dandelion, you'll see these roofs that are just, the whole
Gone.
roof is just gone. Everything else is fine. The reason
Mhm.
that happens is you're getting a negative pressure going on with the flexing of the building. It starts going back and forth and it's moving. And so you're getting air gaps and it creates a pressure system where the only way for it to alleviate itself is to pop the roof off. And so with the ICF home, it doesn't do that flexing. So in theory, and from video and past experience with other ICF homes, that doesn't happen. But with the ultimate, you would want an ICF roof too. So then the whole thing, as tornado comes right over, and your only weaknesses are your windows and doors.
I'm going back to the question I lost. Talking about insurance or even
Mhm.
banking for that matter, getting loans. I help my clients get loans for sometimes somebody wants help and I'll go and answer the
Mhm.
questions. Their new home, they've never built one, blah, blah, blah. So the question comes up, well, how are you going to build it? Is it stick built or is it whatever? What's the answer for these type of homes?
All you're saying is it's a concrete building
So it's a
because
concrete
that's
building.
all it is.
Yep. Okay. That's
People
good to know.
tend to overcomplicate it. It's just concrete and rebar all the way to the roof.
Yep.
It's just encased in a piece of foam that just makes your home excellent. That's it.
Well, if you say it's a concrete building, it's a concrete block. No, it's solid walls. And that's all you
Yep.
got to answer then. And that's most of the time that's all they care about, but they just want to know.
Hmm.
You wouldn't consider it masonry, I guess, because there's
Nope.
no blocks involved. It's just concrete walls.
So that's why we named it Monolith, because
Yep.
it's a
One
single pour
pour.
that you do in a wall. You go around the whole thing, and it is just one connected solid piece of concrete through the whole thing.
And the slab in the floor, if you're building one that way, like you're in your basement, that's a separate pour, right?
Correct. But the walls will be one single
Right.
pour.
One, not a footer, and then walls on top. It's all the same. Cool.
But just to clarify, you will have
Huh?
footers. And then once your footers are then cured with your J bars sticking up, then you slide your block over those J bars and the wall itself is a single thing. And then let's say you have like a 10-foot basement,
Mm-hmm.
then you wait for 7 days for your basement to cure. That's all you need. And then you will then continue to the second floor, third floor, go so on and so forth. And one thing that's really awesome, if you know concrete very well, the longer the cure process, the harder the concrete becomes. And there are builders out here in Utah that have gone through and helped clients 2 years down the road, and they'll drill through the core to like build an access hole for, let's say, a new drain or something like that.
Right.
And when
Yep.
they did that. This gentleman that I was talking to a couple months ago, he did that, pulled out that concrete core in the wintertime, and it was still steaming because it was still so warm and still curing
Taking
24
time to
months
cure.
later, which creates an insanely strong building.
That's awesome. Yeah. I thought you might tell me they wouldn't be able to core through it. But like, oh no. But
No, and that's the thing. Just like you would do in a basement, if you wanted to create a walkout basement,
mhm.
it's the same thing. You just do the concrete saw, it goes through the concrete rebar, and you can expand on your house. Let's say you had a 1,500 square foot house with plans to make it a 2,700 square foot down the road. You can cut into it and still tie in and do everything that you would do with regular construction to expand your home.
So I said the word alternative earlier,
Hmm.
not that I
How
hit a
dare you?
nerve, but how dare me. So would you call it a unique selling proposition?
Meaning what?
Well, my listeners and Hard Hat CEO, we talk about expanding our business, not only the business we have and starting other ones. Is it a way to say, hey, I am different than my competitors because I build with concrete walls?
Hmm.
It makes me unique. I can say that here in fact, confidently here in Missouri, that's not an ongoing thing. So if we did that, can you say that's a unique? So I don't want to say it's an alternative. I don't want to say that. And I think traditional with conflict, I really do. I mean, I think if you had an argument and say you're competing against somebody, they're not traditional, blah, blah, blah. Now the other guy could say the same thing. But if you're competing against somebody, how are you unique? And I'm unique by I provide you all the stuff you talked about. And would that be a fair assumption?
I mean, I
What do you
think,
think,
yeah,
Dustin?
I mean, I would say you could say if traditional or it's a premium. I think the unique value
I think
proposition
that'd be cool.
I mean, it's a premium. I mean, it's a premium home. So, if you're building a multi-million-dollar home somewhere in the affluential area of California,
Mhm.
that would be ICF would be a prospect for that for sure. I mean, it's a premium building material. Even polyurethane is a premium to traditional ICF.
Mhm.
And so in that case, it's possible for a builder to charge, a 3 to 5% premium on the home build, and they can justify it through things like, energy savings, resilience, and things like that. So that would be, they could definitely create a unique value proposition in the market, especially a builder. But also how easy it is to work with. Maybe
Yeah.
someone that wasn't a traditional, maybe it's a concrete company. Maybe they just do foundations, things like that. The fact that the blocks just stack and you don't need masons and carpenters and things like that, it could give other companies. So maybe your concrete company doing 2 million, 3 million a year in revenue, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
you just can't get more concrete work. It's saturated. You hit a wall. You want to drive new revenue through your business. Well, get in the ICF business, start putting up walls, throw these things
Yeah.
up, go from 3 million to 10 million, because you've added a whole new revenue stream to you. So there's a lot of ways to view that. And a lot of people there's all kinds of different ways for people to create a unique value proposition for themselves in the marketplace with
Cool.
it.
That's what. And from what I understand, I'm just talking here, doesn't take. You might have to hire one more person or two, or maybe you can just do it the same crews you have, depending on how busy you are. But you can expand your sales with very little investment, I guess, as far as manpower goes.
Hmm.
One other thing to add to that, I mean, that's us as a company in ICF. There's this. Let me give you a couple numbers real quick. Right now, ICF is a
Sure.
$1.3 billion industry,
Mm-hmm.
and it arguably should be a minimum 12 billion. Not just because we're hopeful of that. It should be somewhere there was a gap in adoption. There was a gap in messaging. Something happened, and it didn't reach that. So it should be a 13 million, or 13 billion. Sorry.
Right.
And realistically, if you compare it to stick framing, which is somewhere up around 40 billion, CMU is a 12 billion. You throw in some other methods. You start realizing, well, ICF is easily a 20 plus billion. This isn't just, sky dream numbers. I mean, these are real numbers that could potentially hit. If we're sitting at $1.3 billion just in the US,
Mm-hmm.
that means that, and now that ICF is gaining popularity and we're getting the message out there and we're improving it, we're getting rid of its limitations. There's a 10x growth opportunity in ICF, just ICF itself for people. So this could be this could be young builders or anybody. There's a 10x opportunity. There's a $10 billion opportunity for them to jump in. So they could become the person in Missouri, or in the Springfield area, the Ozarks, or
Sure.
up Kansas City. Kansas City's booming. I mean, they could be the Joplin. I mean, there's a history there to talk about why there should be ICF homes, right?
Yeah. Yes, there is.
It's a huge opportunity. So and it's growing and it's growing popularity. So people, it's just something people can jump on. It's an emerging opportunity.
As a company, I got a couple of ideas, my thoughts. And I want, because I'm thinking about my people as they might reach out to you and say, well, this might be something I want to do. Do you provide training to your contractors?
100%.
Okay. I mean, I'm assuming there's some, it sounds easy, but I'm sure there's some techniques and stuff you got to do to make sure it's done properly, right?
Yeah, we'll have online portals, but as we're starting right now, I physically will be on site. I will be there. I will train you. I'll train tradesmen, siding guys, electricians, plumbers, um, interior framing guys. People tend to overcomplicate it, but once they understand, it is so much faster for all the trades, whether it's interior framing, the anchor points and your floor joists, anchor points and your rafter anchor. All of this is cemented into your walls, and so you go in and it is so fast. Your electricians and plumbers, they get this little 4-inch battery operated chainsaw and you just route out into the 2.5
Yeah.
inches of foam, route it out, plug in your OX cable, put in your PEX plumbing or whatever it is that you're using,
Mhm.
and you're off. You're not drilling through every single 2x4 wall. You're not having to, it is such a pain. It's very easy to go up and down, through your studs, but to go
Sure.
cross stud is a giant pain in the butt. Now versus cutting down over, and it takes seconds, and then you plug it in, and you're done. It really, I think people tend to really overcomplicate the intensity of what the trades are going through because it's foreign. But once they've done it once or twice, from all the reports we've heard, the trades prefer us, or rather the ICF technology, because it's so much faster.
Awesome. I got two more questions before we wrap up. So sometimes when you go to something new,
Mhm.
your websites will provide, hey, give your zip code, and it might recommend dealers or contractors. Or does your website offer that?
We're not right now because we're only manufacturing in Salt Lake City, but on our roadmap, like right now we're already specking out a manufacturing facility in Puerto Rico. We're looking at Nevada, getting close or somewhere closer to California, South Carolina as an option. But overall, over the next few years, our goal is to set up actual manufacturing in key areas to service service all the markets. And each of those facilities will act as a hub, to where we'll be acting as a hub to set up partnerships, distributor partnerships, things like that. Right now, we're only manufacturing in Salt Lake City. So right now you just reach out to us direct and we'll build a relationship, and we're in the early stages. So there's some systems that we're still solving for as a material supplier, but it also gives people an opportunity to be part of something early on too.
Right.
Yeah, and our plan is to the biggest weakness in terms of like getting the product into the customer's hands is shipping, because you're not doing it by weight but rather volume.
Yeah.
And it is extremely expensive for our competitors, or rather the other ICF players in the field, to build a plant. It's very, very, very expensive. And so I think one of the biggest manufacturers, I believe they only have 2 locations in the United States. We would like to have one every 450 to 700 miles nationwide, because that's where you really start tapering off on the shipping. And so you don't want to ship from Utah to Florida. No, you want a Florida plant that can service Florida. You want a Carolinas plant that can then do the Carolinas and up to Maine. Like we really want to create that. Yeah. So we want to create that infrastructure to be that support, and to allow that shipping cost to not be a barrier to entry for anyone.
Last question. And I don't know if it has to do with your product or business in general, but it's more of a question for me of curiosity. So years ago, I guess that's been years now, you know, that was rebar. There still is rebar. And then there's
Mhm.
gator bar. And you know what gator bar is, or what I would call gator bar? It's the fiberglass rod, basically, for concrete. Y'all even heard of it?
Say that again.
We call it gator bar, but it's fiberglass rebar.
Oh yeah. The green stuff.
Yeah, it's lightweight. You know, you can
Yep.
carry a bunch of it compared to Roman. So it's supposed to be like 4 or 5 times stronger than steel, and it's
Mhm.
amazing. And I was resistant to it, but the cost benefit outweighed the. And then in 2020, you know, we're finding hard to find anything, so we're trying anything and everything just get concrete in the ground so we can build. Is that in? Do y'all use gator bar? Can it be used in your monolith?
100% you can use it. I was just at the World of Concrete not too long ago, this last
Mhm.
one, and I love that stuff. I really like the idea of the added fibers that you can do in the concrete to add further strength. I
Possum
really,
hair. That's what we call it.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Possum hair. That's what we call it.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, that's exactly it. So, yep, throwing some possum hair, some gator
Mhm.
bar, and you're all natural
There
at
you
that point.
go. That's right.
So no, we absolutely encourage people to use those. And again, you would call that gator bar potentially alternative rebar when really it's just
Absolutely.
a better, you would just consider that a better system. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. If
And
they could,
so,
if you could figure out how to bend it, then it would be even better. I mean, they would probably
mhm,
take rebar. Wouldn't be a need for rebar, really. So
absolutely. So I encourage, I have no issue with possum hair, gator bar, or bear fur, whatever you want to call anything.
sure.
I highly encourage people to go down those journeys because that's the way we get a better product. I
Yep.
mean, I can't imagine a further insulating fibrous material that builds R value and strength and rigidity to the concrete core, including the gator bar. That is like a triple win in my opinion, because you're now creating the ultimate of the ultimate. You know.
Absolutely. Well, how would we get hold of you if we wanted to talk to you about being a contractor for your product? And I'll put those show notes below. I assume it's a website,
Yep,
Yep.
just
So
buildmonolith.com.
buildmonolith.com. Make sure that's in the
okay.
show notes below. Anybody
And then
can
there's
click on that.
also
Mhm.
email. Just do info@buildmonolith.com.
Okay, that's pretty simple too. info@buildmonolith.com.
Correct.
Awesome. And as always, if you guys want to talk about ideas instead of alternatives, we'll talk about ideas on how to improve your business and make yourself unique. There's always a 30-minute free breakthrough session down at hardhatceo.com. The link's in the notes. Click on that. We can be happy to talk. Guys, thank you very much for your time today. It's been a pleasure. I'm always eager to find out old ideas that are becoming new ways of doing it. How's that sound?
Great.
That's great, Chris. Yeah,
Sure.
thank you.
Ben says, yeah, that's it. No. But it is, like I said, we build with concrete. We're just making it more efficient. So, all right, guys, thank you very
Yeah.
much. This is Hard Hat the CEO, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.